I'm Valerie.
I'm Rachel. I'm Ethan.
I'm Tom.
And we're
For a Lifetime.
And this is
Sally,
our sightseer, and we're headed to
Yellowstone National Park.
Welcome to the vlog.
Ding ding.
Good morning, guys, from Grand Prairie, Alberta, Canada. We're about halfway or so up the state, and today we are going to cross into British Columbia and start our journey up the Alaska Highway. So we thought this would be a great opportunity to talk about some of the common myths and misconceptions about RVing to Alaska. So we're going to log some kilometers to Dawson Creek, and we'll meet you at the Alaska Highway sign. Alright guys, it's time for the obligatory stop at the Alaska Highway sign. And to start our video, did you know that the Alaska Highway doesn't start at the US-Canada border? Give or take from where you're crossing, it's about 500 miles up through BC or Alberta.
I'll admit that after a few trips up and down this highway, we have gotten so we take this pretty little sign for granted. But it actually is kind of a momentous occasion to stop here, to actually be here. Not everybody gets to see this.
Okay, now that you know where the Alaska Highway really starts, let's jump right into a few common myths and misconceptions. Number one, it's gonna destroy my RV. That's false. You know, the roads can be great, you know, like the one we're driving on now. Then there can be some rough spots. Up by the border with Alaska, there's like a 20 to 30 mile stretch that's gravel. But I think that gravel, in my opinion, is better than the frost heaves. And what frost heaves are there these massive whoop-de-doos and dips, because the ground freezes and thaws and just causes these kind of little roller coaster dips. You know, if you see the little pylons on the side of the road or flags or something, take them seriously, because a big frost heave can definitely cause damage. But if you're alert, you'll be just fine. So if you're worried about getting chips and cracks in your windshield, you should probably just stay home. Now keep in mind that those can happen anywhere on any road you drive, but odds are you are gonna come back with like a star or a chip or something that turns into a crack. It's just a fact of life, and factor it into your expenses. And don't replace that windshield when you get to Alaska. Make sure you replace that windshield once you get home, because you never know, you would replace it up there, and it's happened to us personally. A few weeks later, you get a whole nother chip and crack. So just wait until you get back.
Another thing you might be thinking about as you plan a trip to Alaska is joining one of the organized caravan tours that come up to Alaska every summer. And while it's an option, we're not really of the mindset that it's necessary. It's by no means a dangerous road. There's lots of traffic on the roads. You might have a stretch between Whitehorse and Tok where you don't see as many people, but there are service trucks that will even come out to you if you break down and can't make it to a service station. So the resources are there. You'll have plenty of other people on the highway with you. If you want to caravan with a couple of friends for the fun of it, that's a great idea. But organized tours, not really necessary.
So if you're trying to figure out how much time you need to allow for an RV trip to Alaska, one of the biggest factors is, where are you starting from? Obviously, Florida is in the bottom corner of the country, and you're going to have practically a week just to get across the country to Canada. But if you're in Washington State, obviously you're going to be closer. So if you only have 2 weeks to make the trip, your money and time would be better spent catching a flight up to Anchorage and renting an RV up there. There's tons of rental agencies, and they'll even pick you up from the airport. Because let's face it, the drive is long, and the more time you get to spend up there, the better. Obviously, if you could spend the whole summer up there, that would be better, you know, like take off from the lower 48 in late April, early May, and then leave Alaska in the middle of September, and you will have the most amazing summer of your lives.
One of the biggest concerns about coming to Alaska that we hear from most people is the cost. And there's no doubt when you're driving 2,300 miles just to get there from Seattle each way, that there's going to be some expense to it. But there are things that you can do to keep the costs down. One of the biggest benefits is right now, fuel prices are a lot lower than they have been in recent years. So it is kind of a great time to make this trip. And that applies not only to the US side, but also in Canada. Secondly, and we often recommend this to people even if they aren't driving to Alaska in an RV, but rather they could rent one when they get there, that bringing an RV or renting an RV in Alaska is absolutely the most economical way to see the state. Rental cars, lodging, and eating out are the most expensive components of your trip. And if you can combine that by having your RV be the vehicle you get around in and the place you sleep, and allow you the ability to eat in more of your meals, then you're going to save a lot of money.
Well, now it's time to talk about the Milepost. We have a love-hate relationship with that darn book. But we haven't had to get it out since we left Alaska and drove through Canada on our way south in the fall. But we always keep it within arm's reach. They come out with a new one every year, and there are benefits to getting it, but ours is a 2015. I will go as far as to say that the Milepost is one of those must-have items. But for us, the biggest frustration has been, as Alaskans, the book is written for people from the lower 48 coming to Alaska. So every time we've had to use the book, we're using it backwards. It gets really annoying. But it is an awesome book full of great information about where pullouts are and what to do and things to see. But don't use it as your sole guide to checking out Alaska, because there are a lot of things that are inaccurate or not mentioned or downplayed.
All right, so let's talk about a couple of logistical items for traveling to and from Alaska. First of all, passports. This is something you will need. You can no longer cross the borders in and out of Canada without a passport. So that's something you want to plan ahead for and make sure you bring with you. The second thing, we have stopped doing the health certificates because we haven't needed one all these years. Now, what we do always carry with us are copies of the dog's rabies and vaccination records. We always have them in the RV. We haven't ever been asked to produce them, but it's just smart to carry them with you.
So if you've been following our video for any length of time, you will have seen us camp on the side of the highway through the rural stretches of Canada and pretty much anywhere in the rural stretches of Alaska. And let's just say there's a lot of rural stretches, and that's what we love about it. So if you're traveling down these remote highways and you get tired, you can literally just pull right off the road in these little pullouts, and there are plenty of them, and there's no reason to pay for campgrounds or RV parks if you're just covering ground. Now, if you're going to stop and recreate, there are a ton of amazing campgrounds out there.
Well, one of the most common questions we get about the Alaska Highway is what the gasoline situation is. Do you have to worry about running out of gas between opportunities to fill up? And that really isn't an issue anymore. This is a part of the world that is definitely more developed than back in the day. And while we do always carry a 5-gallon can of gasoline with us, we do that no matter where we are. Our experience is that you never go more than about 200 miles between seeing a gas station.
All right, since we brought up the topic of gas and being prepared for things, let's talk about that myth that you need to carry 2 spare tires. You know, if you got the space, go right ahead, but definitely make sure you have 1 spare tire, and always make sure there's air in that tire. That would be very frustrating to go and use your spare tire and to find out it's flat. But there are plenty of places to get tires repaired and replaced along the highway. You may be delayed a day or 2, but you need to factor that into your equation when you're traveling such long distances. No matter where you're going, there's going to be variables. But it never hurts to always be prepared. And we are always prepared in our motorhome with all kinds of things and fluids that we would need to handle stuff on the side of the road.
Another thing you might wonder about driving up here is whether or not you'll have cell phone service. Now, Ben and I both have different cell phone companies. I have Verizon and he has AT&T. So we've been able to test both. And we find that particularly in the cities, you have excellent cell phone service, or towns, I should say. It doesn't even have to be cities, but in the towns, you will always have cell phone service. It may get a little sketchy in between. You might not have data, may just have some cell phone service, or it occasionally will go down to no service at all.
All right, guys, let's talk about guns, because everybody thinks you have to bring a gun to protect yourself from the big bad bears. That is completely false. I would be lying if I didn't say that when we're out in the wilderness, we're not always carrying a pistol, but that's because we live in Alaska and we're allowed to have our pistols up there. Now, if you're coming from the lower 48, you're not allowed to bring pistols through Canada. You can bring hunting rifles, but look into that. But essentially, go onto Google, type in non-resident Canadian firearm declaration, print out the form, declare your firearms at the border for $25, and head on up to Alaska. But I would say your best weapon for bear defense is your noggin. Educate yourself on bear behavior and how to act defensively when in bear country. And dare I say, if you're not properly trained on the use of firearms and even how to handle bear encounters, bear spray is a far better weapon to have. It's non-lethal, and a lot can go wrong if you don't use your gun properly.
I'm sure many of you have heard the joke that the mosquito is the state bird of Alaska. And yes, it's true, we have large mosquitoes and lots of bugs up there. So this is definitely not a myth, but there's a little more to the story. Number 1, it's very seasonal and also location dependent. The other thing is it's not just mosquitoes. We also have no-see-ums and white socks that are equally as annoying. The point is, expect it, be prepared, bring whatever type of bug spray you like, and use it frequently. You'll have a much more pleasant experience, you'll be a lot happier, you'll enjoy your trip a lot more, and hopefully you won't get carried away by one of our mosquito birds.
So one of the more common myths and misconceptions about Alaska is that in the winter it's dark all day long and in the summer it's light all day long. That is and is not accurate. Keep in mind, Alaska is twice the size of Texas. And if you've ever driven across Texas, that's a very, very large state. So the climate and the latitude really changes heavily in Alaska. So in the southern parts of the state, you're gonna get a little bit of darkness on the summer solstice. But if you're all the way up on the northern parts of the state like Barrow or up in Prudhoe by the oil fields, the sun literally does not set, and it just kind of stays low on the horizon. It literally will circle you. Another thing you need to remember is that as fast as the sun comes, it goes. So winter solstice is December 21st and summer solstice is June 21st. And at the peak of that swing, I believe it's called the equinox, we're gonna get over 7 minutes of daylight gained or daylight lost. So now talking about the weather, well, you need to be prepared for a little bit of everything, because in the interior, it can get up to 90 or 100 degrees. But then on the coast of Alaska, like where we live in Seward, it can be pouring down rain and 45 degrees on that same exact day. So keep in mind, we have coastal conditions, we have interior conditions, and we just have the sheer size of the state that factors into the weather. But generally speaking, keep in mind generally, you will not see below freezing temperatures in the summer months unless you go to the far northern stretches of the state.
We're definitely moving right along down the highway here, and we've kind of moved out of the farmlands and more into a forested environment. While we have really enjoyed the past month spending time seeing all of the different farmlands that we've traveled through, it is nice to have this change of scenery. We're definitely getting closer to home, and we can feel that, and it's a welcome change.
Alright guys, when it's all said and done, I think we're chipping off about 550 miles today. That is a long day's drive. But on a positive note, I kind of feel like we're getting close to home because the scenery, the wildlife, and this is our land. Even though it's Canada, we're all people of the north here, and it just feels good. Yeah, I'm getting like that second wind, burst of energy. So we're gonna take a gamble right now. It's about 5:30 to 6 o'clock in the evening, and we're gonna see if there's any campsites available at the Liard Hot Springs campground. It's peak tourist season, and I'm guessing from memory there might only be like 5 or 6 sites that can fit a rig of our length. So it's gonna be a long shot. Let's just cross our fingers that we'll be able to camp there. Alright guys, this is a wonderful campground, except it's peak tourist season and it's full. And it's also peak season rate of $26 a night, but that includes your pass to go into the hot springs. So I flipped around, and across the Alaska Highway here is an overflow parking area. Still the same price of $26 a night. She said it's getting awfully full, and there's a chance we might not even find space over here. All right, guys. Well, we decided to stay the night here, and the guys over there were able to hook us up and guide us in and move their truck around so we could fit. You gotta love the kindness of strangers. So yeah, this will work for the night. It is still way too warm for us to want to go into the hot springs, so we're gonna chill out for a few hours and let the sun go down and wait for night. Well, night is all relative at this latitude, so we're just gonna chill out for a few hours. Thanks for riding with us today. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you later.